One-tenth of 1% is a bridge too far on a multi-trillion-dollar federal budget for just a few Republican senators. And the left's new nomination to be the next Joe Rogan talks about what went wrong with men and the left with Congressman Richard Hudson. 2, Obama, Hunter Biden, and Joy Reid. I sound off on can't miss video and sound. 3, Shane Gillis tears it up at the ESPYs, but he's met with sourpuss faces in the crowd of athletes on ESPN. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Terrestrial radio across this great United States of America, but always on demand by subscribing at Apple or on Spotify. Make sure you set that reminder on YouTube and Facebook. Then you can join us every Monday through Thursday live at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. 2 days, Dan got his wish. We are joined today by my at least one-time co-host. Hanging out for the entirety of Will Cain Country is Saint. My 76-pound Doberman has made his way into the studio, up the elevator, and through the building, and is currently wandering around the control room of Will Cain Country. But Scott King's bringing him into the studio right now, hoping he'll come over here and hang out on camera. Just a moment ago, tinfoil, just a moment ago, 2 days, Saint was getting himself familiar with the studio. And I have to say, there was a little bit of excitement, which meant a little bit of leakage at one point on the hard floors.
Following Scott around.
Promptly cleaned. But he's following Scott around, and that's a good sign 2 days, because a moment ago he was sitting here at my feet, and he is, how do I put this kindly, the least street smart Doberman that I've ever owned. And he looked through the control room windows and didn't recognize Scott, growled at him, made his way around the corner, and Dobermans do something unique that I haven't seen a lot with other dogs. They smile. When I come home, he's excited, he smiles. Violet, my other Doberman, she smiles. They bare their teeth, they show their teeth, but it is not a preparation to attack. It's like, I'm happy. And so he goes around the corner and he realizes it's Scott, who he just met, and he snarls, and you should have seen how far back Scott jumped. It was a smile that Scott did not realize was friendly. But we're all just getting to know each other here today.
That's great.
So we'll see. This is an experiment today with my new co-host, Saint. Shane Gillis hosted the ESPYs last night on ESPN, the annual sports awards, and he did, well, Shane Gillis. He didn't change for Disney, and he tore it up. This is a little bit of Shane Gillis last night on the ESPYs.
Joe Rogan actually wanted me to be here to host this award show so that I could capture Adam Silver, because Joe thinks he's an alien. And Donald Trump wanted me to be here to capture Juan Soto for the same reason. It's an alien joke. What are you booed up there, dude? Shut up.
Juan Soto, a different kind of alien than David Silver. It was really, really funny. And as I was scrolling through social media, most of the response was incredibly positive. But that's not what you saw from the crowd at the ESPYs. That's not what you saw from a crowd of athletes. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, you saw Pat McAfee laughing it up. But Pat McAfee was an outlier. Whether or not it was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or other athletes in the crowd, it was met with a bunch of sourpuss faces. And it really makes you ask questions about modern-day athletes or the environment of the ESPYs or why he was hired by Disney. We're going to run a bunch of clips from that monologue, and we'll share it with you here and answer that question. Is professional sports, is it completely kowtowed and conditioned to the woke left, or has it always been this way, where athletes have trouble showing who they are, laughing, exhibiting a personality? That's coming up a little bit later here on Will Cain Country. But let's get into it now today with story number one. Congressman Richard Hudson of North Carolina joins us now on Will Cain Country. Congressman, great to have you here. Thank you.
Great to be with Saint and you. How are you?
Saint has settled in, and he appreciates your welcome. I'm great, thank you, and we welcome you in here for the first time. I want to talk to you a lot today about some of the budgeting process, spending bills coming out through Congress, but let's just take a moment to get to know you here, Congressman. So I've seen you post up on social media. You're into golf, you're into hunting, you're into Zen. Seems to be part of the brand. I get it. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's great to meet you. I feel like I know you because I've been watching you on TV for so long. But, I grew up in eastern North Carolina, hunting and fishing my whole life. I've only gotten into golf in the last 2 years, really, because my son at age 8, he's almost now 10, decided he was a serious golfer. And he'd been going to some little clinics and things, and he finally talked me into letting him play on in his words, a big golf course, and he beat me. And so I immediately went and got lessons and have been practicing so that my 9-year-old doesn't routinely beat me at golf. But it's become a great passion. And really, I mean, just an opportunity to spend 4 hours uninterrupted with my son. So we do that a lot now.
That's great. I'm inspired to hear about someone, and I know that it's not an uncommon story, but I'm inspired to hear about someone taking up golf in the last 2 years. I'm not going to guess your age, but somewhere in the vicinity, I assume, of my age, because I never have taken up golf. I say that in that I've golfed once or twice a year for the past 20 years, and that is not something that makes you a golfer. I'm an embarrassment every time I step out on the course, and I don't even want to go to something where there might be potential for business or social, because I can't hold up my end of the bargain. I'll be spraying balls all over the course, but I haven't given up on the idea. I want to start golfing. And so whenever I can find the time at some point, I'm going to do that. And I love what you said about it's just opportunity to spend 4 hours with your son, whatever that may be, hunting, fishing, surfing, golfing. It doesn't matter. The point is those 4 hours with your boy.
That's right. And I grew up hunting and fishing with my grandfather. And we were very, very close. And so anytime I'm in the woods, I think about him. And now I'm kind of passing that along to my son, that love of nature, the respect for the outdoors, leaving it better than you found it. It's passing it on to that next generation is really what it's all about. But that's a big part of who I am. Being a dad is a lot more important to me than being a congressman. But I would encourage you, take up golf. It's not that hard when you kind of practice and get going, and it's something where you don't have to be that great to have fun with it. You look at the guys on TV who play, hit 1,000 balls a day, 6 days a week, and even they play bad sometimes. So, it's really about the attitude, and again, it's great recreation. It's amazing in COVID and since golf has boomed in America as people have rediscovered it as an opportunity for families to spend time together, to be outdoors, to be doing something healthy. So I would encourage you. We've got some good places down in my district in Southern Pines and Pinehurst. I'd love to host you.
I'd love to come. One thing I love that you said, though, is being a dad is more important than being a congressman, and I totally agree. But let's talk about the job of being a congressman. So the Senate looks to have approved a $9 billion rescission bill headed now back to Congress because they altered your $9.4 billion rescission package, which was asked for by the White House. This is now has a deadline of tomorrow night, Friday night, for the House to pass this rescission package. First of all, do you expect that to go smoothly? Will there be any hiccups in Congress to just go ahead and, I guess, take what you can get, take the $9 billion and pass it along for rescission?
Well, as you know, Will, everything goes smoothly in the House of Representatives this year. That's a joke. Even the easy things seem to be hard sometimes. But no, I don't anticipate a problem. Look, we're talking about $9 billion over 10 years. I mean, this is a rounding error. If we can't do this, shame on us. We don't deserve to be in office. So it's unfortunate that the Senate took some of the savings out, and so we're not going to be cutting as much as we'd like. But look, this is just the first of many, and I think we all understand that. And we'll take the bird in hand, and we'll come back tomorrow and try to do more. And a lot of the cuts, you hear a lot of screaming and whining about the cuts. What we're cutting is future appropriations. there's a lot of things the Biden administration did and Pelosi, when she was Speaker, did to spend into the future. A lot of these programs, all we're doing is cutting where they did advanced appropriations for the next 2 years. And so, pick your favorite pet project that you think the American taxpayers ought to be funding. I disagree with you, but nevertheless, there is an appropriations process every year where we go through and decide, how to spend the money that we're borrowing and confiscating from the taxpayers. And that process still lives on. And so a lot of the doom and gloom you're hearing is just not true.
As much as I would love to focus on the spending of Democrats, I think that has become self-evident. It's a little bit like pointing out gravity. And quite honestly, right now, they don't have the purse strings. Republicans do in both the House and the Senate and at the executive. And I can't help but notice and be disappointed by, and I'll let you accept the opportunity to talk about this or defer to collegiality, although on the other side of the legislature, how certain senators just can't seem to stomach $9 billion in spending cuts, especially after a career and a lifetime of talking about debts and deficits and spending being the problem. I look over at Maine and I say, okay, Senator Susan Collins, you've said things about spending, and yet now you can't even get to $9 billion. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, same thing. And they may have their granular reasons why this cut or that cut doesn't meet their expectations, but at some point it begs the question, what cut does meet your expectations? And I want to say this, Congressman, it's Maine. I get it. And Alaska's a different kind of state. And the argument's often made, well, if you don't have Susan Collins, you have a Democrat. Maybe that's true. But at some point, I just don't understand a legislator who gives voice to cutting spending and can't stomach 0.1% of the federal budget.
Amen. You're not wrong. And, and again, one of the programs that they've talked about is NPR. They're worried about, if we cut 1% of the NPR operating budget, then all of a sudden no one in rural America will have access to information again. But we're talking about the next 2 years of advanced appropriations for 1% of NPR. It's not the end of the world. I frankly think we're at a point in society where the marketplace has solved this problem. Certainly we need to do more to get broadband connectivity and Wi-Fi to certain areas of the country that may not have it, but there's not a lack of information on the airwaves, either radio, TV, internet, you name it. So I just don't think the American taxpayers need to be propping up NPR and public broadcasting the way we are, and I'm just not sure that's the hill to die on.
I've lived in a lot of rural areas. I come from a rural area in Texas. I've lived in even more rural areas in the hill country of Texas. I lived in rural Montana. I've never met a cowboy or a farmer or a small towner who is carrying an NPR tote bag. I did live on the Upper West Side of New York. I did see a lot of it there. So, I get it. You don't have a lot of opportunities, maybe emergency broadcasting, which, by the way, can break into private stations. So if you got to get an emergency message out, it can break into private stations, not just public. I don't buy this rural argument, especially in the modern day age of communication. Granted, we still need cell service. We just saw that in Texas. There was cell gap coverages. There was warning system gaps. But honestly, I went to Kerrville last week and I never heard from anyone that was like, many people said they might not have gotten the message, but it didn't mean their phone didn't get the message. And by the way, we have to deal with the fact that in situations like that, there's a little bit of boy who cried wolf callousness going on among all of us. We get stuff on our phone all the time. We get watches. We get warnings. We get everything. And at some point, it's incumbent upon us. So I don't know that the price we pay for rural information is that you have to have liberal NPR and PBS shoved down your ears.
Right. And again, we're talking about 1% of their budget. I mean, if it's up to me, we shouldn't be doing anything as far as that goes. And to your point, broadcasters in this country do a great job. They're the folks we turn to when there's a big storm or when there's something going on in the world. And we've actually invested as a federal government in AM radio. We've built a huge network across the country so that AM radio is kind of that last line of information. We don't need to be funding NPR anymore, in my opinion.
All right, let's take a listen, by the way. Here's some of the information you can get. You don't have to just have NPR. There's a lot of places that liberal information can get out. So they're describing Jamie Harrison as possibly the new Joe Rogan of the left, and he welcomed in former vice presidential candidate Tim Walz. And they were talking a little bit about the left and the Democrats and men. Listen.
In this election, in terms of Democrats losing men, particularly, not only white men, and we've always had, or at least in recent history, you have the issue with white men, but younger white men, younger Latino men, younger African American men, we have slipped there. Yeah. In some of these town halls, have you seen some of those folks come to your town halls? And tell me about some of the conversations you've had recently about that.
Yeah, they have. And I think, again, I've got a young one. My son was able to vote as an 18-year-old. Asking him about his take is, especially young white men, is he said, Dad, a lot of them aren't about the policies. Mm-hmm. They're about the thrill and the excitement, and Trump brings the circus type of thing, and that type of acknowledgement. Now, I think I would make the case there's a lot of toxicity in that. Mm-hmm. I think there's the Andrew Tates, there's some of that kind of stuff that gets in there.
I think he ignores, Congressman, though, the effect of actual ideas, too. Like, maybe on policy, but definitely on ideas.
Well, I've got to throw a flag, personal foul, 15 yards. They've defined a man. Like, you can't do that in the Democrat Party. There are no men, there are no women, right? this is, they've committed a foul. Someone's got to call them on it. I mean, that's the silliness of the Democrat Party today. They can't define a woman, yet they want to put everybody in a box. You are defined by your characteristics. You're defined by the condition of your birth. You're defined by your race or your sex. That's the modern Democrat Party. And I think what happened this last election is the American people said, we're tired of this, and enough's enough. And that's why 77 million people voted for Donald Trump. Look, his rallies are fun. I've been to a lot of his rallies. But that's not why they reelected Donald Trump. They reelected Donald Trump because they had 4 years of his policies. And by the way, the best economy in my lifetime. We did have the COVID, but we survived it thanks to Donald Trump's policies. Then you had 4 years of Joe Biden, completely different policies, took the country in a completely different direction. And then maybe for the first time in our country, we had a referendum on the two. You got to choose between the two. And then, Kamala Harris ended up kind of subbing in instead of Biden, but it was the same. It was a referendum on the two presidencies. And 77 million Americans said, we want Donald Trump back because of his policies. And it's open border. It's the economy. It's, stop with all the wokeness. I mean, these are very specific reasons. And that's why we have a very specific agenda. And President Trump on July 4th signed most of that agenda into law. The promises he made on the campaign trail, Congress working with President Trump, we've now delivered those promises. That's why men and women and African Americans and Hispanic Americans and young people all have moved to the Republican Party. It's because of the policies. It's because of the leadership of President Donald Trump.
On that note, you make a great point about they can't define what a man is because you can't define what a woman is. If you can't define a woman, then you can't define a man. And it does raise up an interesting point. Like, have they gone so far down the river that you can't paddle back up to sanity? And I think that is true when it comes to a lot of policies like illegal immigration. I can't find a coherent, saleable position for them on illegal immigration. And it's getting that way on the cultural issue of men. So it's kind of rich. I'm going to play one more clip for you. Now, this is former President Barack Obama on his wife, Michelle Obama's podcast. And I'm not being cheap or partisan when I say try to fight through the way that Barack Obama has developed in speaking, because it has changed over time and it's a struggle. But try to get to what he's talking about here with men.
What we're learning, I think, is that when we don't think about boys and just assume they're going to be okay because they've been running the world and they've got all the advantages relative to the girls, and all of which has historically been true in all kinds of ways. But precisely because of that, if you're not thinking about what's happening to boys and how are they being raised, then that can actually hurt women. And I would argue that some of the broad political trends we've seen, not just in this country, but around the world, have to do with this sense of, boys, men not feeling as if they are seen, feeling as if they count.
Yeah. So, actually, I want to amend something I just said. I do think Obama's speaking style has changed over time. It's like even throughout his presidency, he got more halting and deliberative and slower. And I thought that's what that was when I first heard it. That's the second time I've heard that clip. I think I now know what he's doing. Here's what he wants to say that he could have said in fewer words. We vilified men. And that's a problem. But what he's doing is a series of parentheticals trying to plug holes in the dam along the way, not to lose his wife or any listener by giving credence to woman this, woman that, and it'd be better for women. He's trying to insert parenthetical pillars into the point to not be attacked from the backside. And that's the point. In the end, you just got to be able to say it with, well, we'll say with your chest. You've vilified men, and not only is it okay, but it is great to be a man.
Yeah, well, but it goes beyond that even. I mean, it's the Democrat Party has moved so far to the left. They've become the party of identity politics, and they try to define everybody by these categories and then try to find equity between the categories, and they've just twisted themselves into a knot. And for your average American out there who just has a basic sense of fairness, they just know something's wrong with that. And the Republican Party, what we care about is, I want every child born in America to have opportunity, whether they're a man or a woman, whether they're black or white or Hispanic or what. I don't care what their race is. I don't care what their sex is. I want them to have an opportunity to be an American, to realize the American dream. It doesn't matter. You may be born in poverty. You may be born in a rural area that's very remote, but you can change your circumstances, and based on your hard work and your talent, you can be anything in America. And that's what the Republican Party believes. You know, we don't want to put people in boxes. We want to put people on platforms that can lift them up. And I think the American people agree with that, and they feel they sense that in a very internal way. That's why they're drawn to Donald Trump. That's why they're drawn to the Republican Party, because that's what America's all about. But the Democrats, you know, they have this kind of socialist worldview of, you know, everybody's either an oppressor or oppressed, and we've got to find balance, and we've got to, you know, you got to take this person down a few notches so you can lift this other person up. And the American people just fundamentally reject that kind of thinking.
You know, last thing with you, Congressman, there's, I do think that it's objectively true that there are a series of massive wins being racked up over the first 6 months of Donald Trump's presidency on the foreign policy stage, on the domestic policy stage, in the economy, and in the culture. And, but there is still some angst, some friendly fire on a whole host of issues, including Jeffrey Epstein, but also there was most recently over the big, beautiful bill. I don't know how to measure that when it comes to the big, beautiful bill. You and I have some mutual friends in common. I know you have some things to say about the big, beautiful bill, but we're here now a week removed. I do think it was a victory, but it didn't come without its critics on the right. So what would you say about the big, beautiful bill?
Well, it's fantastic. And you can tell it's a good piece of legislation because nobody likes it, you know, the way it finally turned out. Everybody's got complaints about it. But for the American people, folks listening to us today, read the bill. Educate yourself about what's actually in the bill, because I can tell you mainstream media is lying. You know, they're out there saying we cut Medicaid. That's an absolute lie. We did not cut Medicaid. We made sure that people who aren't eligible, like illegal immigrants, aren't siphoning money off the system. But if you're a vulnerable person who's on Medicaid, we made the program safer for you. We didn't cut it. But what we did is we basically delivered all the promises President Trump made when he ran for office, which was we're going to lock in tax cuts, make them permanent. We're going to give tax relief to working people. You know, 91% of Americans are going to benefit from this bill because of the increased standard deduction for families up to $31,500. 40 million families are going to benefit from an increased child tax credit. There's so much good in this bill. Families can now save money for when they have a baby. They can put aside money every year in an account for that child, and then roll it into a retirement account when they reach a certain age. That's the Trump savings accounts. It's amazing. We gave money to secure the border to stop the fentanyl poisoning of our neighborhoods. We're unleashing American energy, which is going to drive down interest rates and make everything that has to be manufactured or shipped cheaper. The bill is fantastic. We cut spending more than any Congress has ever cut spending in the history of the country. $1.6 trillion of mandatory spending. You know, normally we have big fights in Congress about 11% of the spending. This is mandatory spending that over 10 years is going to save real money, but over 100 years it's going to save even more. And you know, there are people like me who think we didn't cut enough. We should have done more, but we did as much as we could possibly do, given the consensus we had to build in Congress. And so I'm very proud of the legislation.
Right.
Am I satisfied? Absolutely not. But the American people can be proud of what we did, and it's going to benefit their lives. And we're back here the next day fighting for more. We're going to do rescissions. We're going to do another reconciliation package. We're going to continue to try to rein in this spending and bring fiscal sanity to Washington.
And that's what we've heard from Speaker Johnson. More reconciliation, more rescissions. You've got a majority now for another year and a half, so we'll see exactly what happens. All right. Congressman Richard Hudson of North Carolina, it's been a great visit. Glad to have you on the program. Thanks for hanging out so long. It's good to get to know you.
I enjoyed it. Thanks.
All right. Take care, Congressman. Okay, coming up, Kurt Schlichter is going to join us. I want to talk about Joy Reid, despicable person. And I told her where to go yesterday, and then for the rest of her life. I'll play it for you exactly where I'd suggest Joy Reid visit. Next on Will Cain Country. To hell. That's what I was saying. That's what I was trying to say. Go to hell, Joy Reid. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hey, hit subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. All right, joining us now is Kurt Schlichter. He's a friend of our program. He's a senior columnist at townhall.com. He's the author of American Apocalypse, the Second American Civil War. He's also a trial lawyer and a retired Army infantry colonel. Kurt, is that your new book? American
That's
Apocalypse?
the new book. It's out today, and it is shooting up the charts, figuratively and literally. So I'm very excited. I think it's like the number 2 military thriller. So I'm very excited.
It's a military thriller fiction, and
yes,
the subhead really has my attention there, Kurt. The Second American Civil War.
I decided to write about this as a novel and show people, a lot of people take this stuff a little bit cavalierly, Will. A lot of people, we can solve our problems. We'll just go out and punch our opponent into submission. And some people on our side say that, and a lot of people on their side say that. And I served in Kosovo. I served in the ruins of a conflict where neighbor was butchering neighbor. And this is a warning. Now, the book isn't a slog. It isn't boring. It isn't pedantic. There is some funny stuff in it because, I was a stand-up comic, like most colonels. But I'm very proud of it. A lot of people really appreciate it, including a lot of military folks who've had a chance to look at already. And I think that if you get American Apocalypse, it's going to at least open your mind and start you thinking. And it's probably also going to get the bulwark types screaming about me again, which I like so much. I actually put Bill Kristol calling my books appalling on the back as a blurb because I can't think of a better recommendation.
Well, it's a fascinating frame that I can't wait to dive into, a Second American Civil War. And I think that your point is well taken. I think that there's a little bit of a modern day, I don't know if there's a lust for it, but a cavalierness to your point. That's a great word. Yes. Cavalierness towards demonizing your political opponent to the point of violence. And you have, and I haven't. But I think you can even academically understand it if you're just a slight student of history of how horrific a civil war actually is. Neighbor killing neighbor. And might warn you off from being so cavalier.
Well, especially when you have a modern society, because America is not, a collection of outlets. It's not, here's a gas station, here's a supermarket, here's a bank. America is a system of systems. And you start taking pieces out of it, things collapse. Imagine you can't get money. Imagine you can't access your money. And when you do, there's no food because the logistics system can't function because people are fighting. I tried to build a world and show people, hey, here's the fallout of what you're talking about. And I understand the frustration of people. The Democrats are intensely stupid people and intensely dishonest. And guess which side I'd be on. And sometimes you just want to say, I can't have arguments anymore. I can't have debates. We can't work things out through processes and procedures because they get forgotten and ignored. Well, let's just punch our way to success. And, there may be a victor in a civil war, but there's not going to be a winner.
So on that note, here's an incredibly stupid and immoral clip that got me a little bit worked up yesterday. This is former MSNBC host Joy Reid going after Donald Trump and having no problem stepping on the graves of children in order to make her political point. Watch. I debate with myself the value of showing you the type of clips I'm about to play. It's a little bit like rubbernecking at a car wreck along the freeway, or going to the circus and visiting the tent with the world's fattest woman, or the world's smallest man. It's grotesque, and yet you can't look away. And so now I suggest there is some value in everyone turning their attention to the center ring of the circus tent as I introduce to you the most moral and intellectual dwarf in the world, Joy Reid.
Trump has those kind of voters. They are dedicated to him personally. They care more about him being happy than them being happy. They care more about him having what he wants than them having what they want. There's nothing he can do. He can drown them in Texas. He can take away their FEMA. He can do anything he wants to them. There's nothing you can do about it. It's a cult.
Drowning them in a river in Texas. On behalf of the people of Texas, I would like to extend this message, Joy Reid. Go to hell. All right, that's yesterday from the Will Cain Show on FNC. And, Kurt, that's how I feel. I mean, and that's actually a muted version. That's a muted version of how I feel.
Well, look, FCC compliant here. In Joy Reid's defense, she's one of the stupidest people in the public eye, and she's also a moral illiterate. Now, that's not much of a defense. I guess it's more of an explanation. I have mixed feelings when stupid people say stupid things like this, because I'm still a military guy and I operate by the dictum, don't interfere with your enemy when they're making a mistake. And it's a mistake on two grounds. The first ground is she doesn't understand us or who we are, making it harder for her to defeat us. And the fact that we've gone 6 months from victory to victory to victory in restoring America, and the Democrats are absolutely unable to stop it, demonstrates that their misunderstanding of who we are, because their understanding of who we are is based on what they want. It's a narcissistic view that reinforces them. We exist to be an antagonist. We exist to be a contrast whereby they are wonderful, moral, brilliant, have good taste, love NPR, and we're a bunch of knuckle-dragging literal Nazis. The other thing is, I believe deeply in the decency of the American people, because I've seen it, especially as a military guy, watching our guys overseas try and help people they'd never met before, and in fact, people from America sending goods in so my soldiers could help them. I mean, Americans are wonderful people, and when they see something morally bankrupt like that, even if they're maybe not on that political side, if they're not SSRI gobbling Chardonnay wine women and normal people who just don't vote like we do, they see something like that and they're like, I'm not on board. That's not the world I want to be in. And I think that's right. If she needs to do that, go ahead, make my day.
And I think, so that's why there's value in playing that. There is a response often when I play something like that is, why do I need to see that? Well, the reason you need to see that is not necessarily for you, but that the decent American can see the values and the morality of someone like that so that they can make that decision. And it's based upon some level of hope, but I share your hope and the decency of the American people that that's not for me. Whatever that is, I don't want to be anywhere near Joy Reid.
I don't want to be that guy who's that wrapped up in short-term political politics that I've, given up my soul. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of leftists out there who say, well, Kurt, you're very mean and you're aggressive and you're angry. And it's, well, all true. But I try not to dance on the graves of little girls swept away in an inundation. I just, and also, Kurt, you're bad is not an answer for yourself. Everybody out there has to make a personal decision about what kind of person they want to be. Everybody's going to be judged one day. And, you should make good choices, as they said in the movies during the 2000s. Make good choices.
All right, I want to visit a couple of podcasts with you here, Kurt. So first of all, Michelle Obama has a podcast. She had a big guest. She's got a big guest. It was former President Barack Obama. And it was kind of interesting. And we'll watch this. Exactly. Exactly, Kurt. So this is what's interesting. They address their personal relationship. Let's watch.
Oh, to IMO, look at you.
Wait, you guys like each other?
Oh yeah, really, huh?
That's so
the
nice.
Rumor mill. It's my husband, y'all.
She took me back.
Now don't start.
I can't.
It was touch and go for a while.
It's so nice to have you both in the same room
I
together.
know.
I know, because when we aren't, folks think we're divorced.
I'm going to call my
by the way,
chiropractor
he
because
goes-
I've cringed so much. I think I've dislocated something. Oh,
Says he says, you guys are talking, you guys are all right? And Obama goes, it was touch and go for a while. Now, I don't know if he's joking, but, I mean, I think they did kind of hint that she says it. It wasn't. And look, what marriage is always perfect, right? Who knows how rough it was, but
only mine, right,
it does
honey?
give validation to what we all said. But it does give validation to the things people were talking about. This relationship seemed to be in a bit of trouble.
I mean, everything about them is just, I just kind of want to move on. And I think the Democrats have moved on from them too. I mean, he was from an age of frankly failure because he led up to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's provided a revolution. He used to be smooth. He used to be cool. Remember 2008? He was the cool guy. And, he was representing change. He was representing an America where everybody could have a chance. Even if you didn't like him, the fact that America could and easily did, well, I mean, he was running against John McCain, but he easily did win an election, said something about America and its openness to people and its opportunity. And he just kind of ruined that. Everything about him seems detached, seems phony, seems preachy, seems hectoring. And you'd get the idea that he'd much rather be chilling with Leonardo DiCaprio and his teenage bride du jour out on a yacht off Sardinia. You definitely get that from Michelle.
Well,
I mean, Michelle's like,
that sounds like a pretty awesome weekend, Kurt.
Actually, Sardinia is amazing. So I can't really,
a yacht, Sardinia,
too much for
Leo,
that.
a beautiful bride. Come on, man.
Well,
we can do better than this. I think we got 9 out of 10 takers on this weekend, long weekend.
Exactly. I mean, wow. But no, I mean, he's not a fashionable Democrat either because he didn't. He was disruptive, but he was subtle about it. He wouldn't have made the Joy Reid error. Right? He would never have done. Would never would have said something like that. If he was making a jab, it'd be much more subtle. Joy Reid, a lot of these guys are just blunt instruments, and it's because they're not very smart or talented.
All right, we got one more piece of sound from podcast. I don't believe this is out yet, but it's Hunter Biden made an appearance.
Whoa.
I'm not sure whose podcast it is. Yeah, Hunter Biden's putting himself out there talking about, hey, look, I didn't run America. Listen.
Do you think Joe Biden was involved in some cover-up? Do you think Jake Tapper's telling the truth when he says that I was the acting chief of staff of the president? I was in that White House 12 days over the course of the last 2 years of the administration. Clearly, because I had other things going on. Okay? You ask one person to go on the record that would ever tell you that I was in any way making a single decision about anything in that White House. I stayed as far away as I possibly could, which, by the way, broke my heart.
Yeah.
All right, no, that's At Our Table, Jamie Harrison's new podcast. That's the guy, Kurt, they're all saying is going to be the left's new Joe Rogan. Like, as though you can inorganically prop someone up and create it. I'm serious, they are. But we played two
Jamie
clips
Harrison,
today, so good for Jamie
the new
Harrison.
Joe Rogan.
We played Tim Waltz. We played Tim Waltz and Hunter Biden. It's where all the lefties are going to have long form, I guess.
Holy cow.
Outside of Michelle Obama's show.
I mean.
Yeah, there's Hunter Biden. He was the high-pitched voice.
Wow, the Tony Montana of the Democrat Party. Interesting. Look at the people they're trying to push on America. I mean, are there any normal people out there who go, I guess Hunter's okay. I mean, he takes a bump once in a while, but that's all right. Videotapes himself with Estonian hookers. That's cool. Who doesn't? Oh, and Tim Walz. Yeah, when I think of masculinity, I think of Tim. And us veterans, we particularly appreciate him. Because, right. Look, a lot of these things that we've been talking about go back to the same theme, which is the Democrat Party has stopped being a party of working class Americans. It has started being the party of the kind of people who put "hate has no home here" signs out in the yard in front of their townhouse, and then spend their days watching MSNBC as they guzzle Chardonnay, oaky Chardonnay, to be exact, and gobble SSRIs. All right, these are the people who are upset about NPR. These are people who know what NPR is, and they have no connection to real people. I think you tied it all together. Yeah, they've got no connection to real people. Okay? In Los Angeles, they think they're going to visit the real America if they travel out to Glendale to get Armenian food, which I do highly recommend. It's great food. But I've never met, look, being a Californian and a Los Angelino, I have many liberal friends. And the fact is they are the most parochial people I've ever seen because they've never gone to the interior of the country. Now, I was born in Ohio. My roots are Pennsylvania. I was in the Army, as a California alternative kid in the 80s. I've hung around normal Americans, and these people have absolutely no concept what our country is like or what our people are like. All they have is this horrible picture painted by half-wit Jackson Pollocks like Joy Reid, this bizarre, arbitrary, and absolutely ridiculous illustration of who Americans are, and they have no idea, and they have no appreciation of the greatness of our people. Americans are different. Californians are not like other Americans, but our Americans are great, and Californians can be great, at least outside the polling place.
Sure. One of my best friends at Pepperdine Water Polo, his name was Vache Sharikian, and he was from Glendale, and he was Armenian. And in all that time, I don't think Vache ever fed me Armenian food. I don't think I've had this cuisine you've just lauded. I've never had Armenian food. He was, I guess so.
You come out here, I will take you to Zankou chicken. Beck sang about it in Loser. It's amazing.
Okay, Armenian food next on the list. Do it. As should be, by the way, American Apocalypse, the Second American Civil War. It's out today. Make it your summer reading. I'm on vacation next week. I'm looking forward to it. It's by Kurt Schlichter, and you should check it out. Kurt, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, Will.
All right, there he goes. Hey, 2 days, tinfoil. In that clip we just played of Hunter Biden, I got to tell you something. There was a little bit of a check on me. I got a closet full of, I'd say, half a dozen poncho shirts. Really like them, Western style. Was that what Hunter was wearing? Has the poncho Western shirt been commandeered by a Maryland crack addict? Like, is it?
It might be a rebrand by him, though. I think it's a little
hipster?
It is up here, yeah. There's a couple of Brooklyn brunch outfits. You'll see those. Sorry to say.
Around the poncho shirt?
Yeah. Sorry to say.
Quit. My culture is not your costume. Quit appropriating my culture.
It's more the Patagonia crowd, like the North Face crowd.
And we have a mixed bag here on the show. Hunter was going with the white undershirt. Of course, I never do. I let the Burt Reynolds, Tom Selleck chest hair fly. But I've never been an undershirt guy. Just never been one. And I think it's a serious detraction from the look. Like, Hunter's going 2 buttons down on the poncho shirt. Yeah. So that's a lot of white undershirt showing. Don't you think that's like...
It's too much.
That's too much.
And then, but I mean, you like to let the chest hair fly, so that's your thing.
It's not my thing. It just feels normal, right? I always have trouble with the second button, but I'm just not an undershirt guy. I'm not a big sweater. Tinfoil says he wears an undershirt to mop up all of his sweat. Kind of gross, right, Scott, to think about?
Ugh.
By the way, frequent viewer, listener, lifelong friend texted me the other day, said, let me get this straight. Tinfoil is afraid of bridges, but lives in Jacksonville. Literally, you can go nowhere in Jacksonville without using a bridge.
One side of the river. And then if I have to go over a bridge, I'll go over the one I feel the most comfortable with, which is like very wide, nobody drives on it. So
you kind of like, are you like a recluse?
No, they're just, everything I want to do is on this side of town. I don't need to go over the other side of town. Just a bunch of rednecks anyway.
So you just avoid the bridges.
Do you leave your house?
Oh,
occasionally.
Whoa. Shot at the pawn shop side.
Don't go to the west side.
I don't know if that's where our boy Brent Siriano is from or not. Swam in the Navy SEAL swim. Viewer, listener from Jacksonville. I don't know if that's where he's from, but now we're just about started a Jacksonville Civil War because of somebody's phobia of bridges and a love affair with undershirts. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Shane Gillis tore it up at the ESPYs. I think you should hear it. Next on Will Cain Country. If you didn't want Shane Gillis, why'd you hire Shane Gillis? It is Will Cain Country. Streaming live at YouTube and on Facebook, but always available on Spotify or on Apple. 2 days in Tinfoil. I think it's been a success. Inviting my co-host in today has been pretty nice. He's been a good co-host.
Hate to say I told you so.
He has been a good boy. He has been chill. He's been laying. Yeah, I got him, Scott. Come here, Saint. Saint, come here. Saint. That's not good look for TV. You got to come when I say come. He's been chill. He's been laying around. He's been moseying around the studio.
He's following Scott.
Yeah, he's following Scott everywhere he goes right now. And I can't do mean voice because I'm broadcasting.
He just wants to hang out with
Scott. I can't use attention. I know. So it's been a success. I would say unless the building shuts this down, we might have a frequent co-host here on Will Cain Country. He's done a good job. I've thought about, like, what do you say if the building's like, you're not allowed to have a dog in? And I could say, he's my emotional support dog. And I don't think they're allowed to say anything after that anymore.
You got to legalize that, but yeah.
And how do I do that? I have to get a doctor's note?
Yeah,
how does that work?
Yeah, doctor's note. Go to your local government.
They just hand
it's
them
pretty
out.
easy. Just say you have anxiety or something, and you're fine.
Okay. Then I thought, well, he's my protection he's my protection detail.
Yeah.
Could I do that? Like, security for the office?
Possible.
No?
Working dog.
Yeah. I thought exactly.
You have to put him to work.
I'm proud of him. He's working right now, Tinfoil. If you came in, he'd let you know. I have a feeling. If you came in right now, he doesn't warm up immediately, but he gets there. He's been a good boy. Saint. Shane Gillis was good last night at the ESPYs, the annual sports award show hosted by ESPN. Decided their MC would be comedian Shane Gillis. I have watched both seasons of Tires. It's really funny. All of Shane Gillis' stand-up is funny. It's pretty fascinating to think Shane Gillis is who he is today after being fired from SNL for supposedly racist jokes back in the day, and here he is now hired by Disney. But it wasn't necessarily super warm inside the theater. The athletes didn't laugh. Let's give you a little taste of the jokes last night from Shane Gillis.
When Caitlin Clark retires from the WNBA, she's going to work at a Waffle House so she can continue doing what she loves most, fist fighting black women.
Oh, my God.
The audience reaction shot there is from Drewski. And
Yeah.
Drewski has a great sense of humor, by the way,
does.
and he laughs. But every time they shot an athlete, they just weren't laughing much at what he had to say. And I did see, I was trying to find it because I wasn't watching it live, so I was looking up Shane Gillis' monologue on X. And, there was a sizable contingent of people saying, if you are offended by Shane Gillis, I really don't want to hang out with you. If you didn't think this was funny, please walk away at the barbecue. Whatever type of guy or whatever person this is that is somehow offended or pretending like it's not funny, well, go get yourself a job at Awful Announcing. Awful Announcing, the sports media, coverage site, thought it was worthwhile to run an article today entitled, "One Former ESPN Star Didn't Find Shane Gillis Funny." First of all, that headline suggests it's not a headline. It's not a story. Yeah. One former ESPN star. Oh, really? Did you? And by the way, it's not like they interviewed the person. They took their post on X, and that's an article. So somebody that used to work at ESPN, entitled to Star, posted something not liking Shane Gillis, and that's an article. And by the way, that former ESPN star is Sarah Spain. So, shocker, Sarah Spain didn't like Shane Gillis. Frickin' start the printing press. Alert, alert, breaking news. But more notable than that would be the athletes that just didn't. Shane Gillis said before that, I love Caitlin Clark. She and I have a lot in common. What did he say? We both have a long history of nailing threes.
That's a 10 out of 10 joke.
That's a great joke. Did you see? You have a couple other clips to play for us. Do you have the clip where he said, "WNBA great star is here tonight," and they took a shot of the audience?
Yeah.
Do you have that clip?
I do. Ready?
Okay, it's awesome. Okay, roll it to it, Ace.
4-time WNBA All-Star Brittany Hicks is here. Give it up for Brittany, everybody. I'm joking around. That's my friend's wife. I knew none of you knew WNBA players. That's crazy. You clap for that.
That's crazy. You clap for that.
And they did, by the way. And they
What
did.
a risk. What a risk of a joke, though. Like, that could go poorly.
Why?
Because, like, if no one laughs at
In case they don't clap?
Because if there's like, who is that?
No, but
Well, they didn't know who it was because it wasn't somebody. And yet they're like, oh, well, yeah, 4-time WNBA, yeah.
Ugh.
But the good thing about Shane is he's in the Norm Macdonald School of Comedy, where he does not care if he gets claps or applause or laughs or any of that. So, like, he's going to deliver it anyway, and he probably prefers when he doesn't get laughs.
To your point, Patrick, about Norm Macdonald. So, my big takeaway from this is the lack of humor among the professional athletes and the people attending the ESPYs. And, we had some discussion, three of us this morning, like, well, is that professional sports fully digesting woke left culture? Is that professional sports, having lost its mind into, whatever, schoolmarm mentality? But, we bring up Norm Macdonald because in the 90s, Norm Macdonald told a joke, and it didn't get much laughs either. His joke back then, I don't know if you have this 2 days, I won't tell it if you do, but his joke back then was redone this year by Shane Gillis. Do you have this one as well, 2 days?
No, I don't.
Well, Shane Gillis retold it. So it was, at the time in the 90s, hey, Charles Woodson is here. Charles Woodson is the first defensive player to win the Heisman in history. Well, this year, they brought up Travis Hunter, the second defensive player and offensive player to win the Heisman. And he says, that's great. What an accomplishment. They'll never be able to take it away from you. Well, unless you kill your wife and a waiter. And in that case, all bets are off. It was an OJ joke in the 90s, and they didn't laugh about it, really. And so the question maybe isn't, is professional sports captured by woke left schoolmarm mentality, or is it that athletes in general have learned to turn their personality down to zero, in public settings?
Or they don't have one.
And I do wonder about that. Well, but, okay, so that's the other thing. Has an athlete become a finely tuned, successful human being in one area of their life at the sacrifice of everything else that makes a well-rounded person? But all of us said this. We've been in locker rooms. Locker rooms are hilarious. Locker rooms are great. Locker rooms are, you make fun of each other. It's like the currency of a locker room. So, but it's like the minute you walk out of the locker room, the minute there's a camera around, the minute you're in a corporate environment, the minute there's a brand deal involved, now you got to dial it down to zero. And I don't know what the answer is, why you can have a room full of people like that so humorless.
Bad media training, maybe? I don't know. I mean, they're funny around each other, but they're, you know, you don't want your group chat getting leaked, you know? It's like you act differently when you're in private with your buddies than you do in public, especially if you're a public figure.
Like I've said, it's been going on this isn't like a newer phenomenon. It's been going on since Norm told that joke and probably before that. Because like King Griffey Jr. wasn't able to handle that Norm joke back in '97. So
and a lot of those jokes are for comedians too. Like comedians do jokes for comedians. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Especially Shane's retelling.
Patrick, you've pointed out, Patrick, how what are we batting like on professional athletes turned entertainer? And I mean entertainer in terms of a pretty low bar of entertainer, just being a sports commentator, like a studio analyst. Are you entertaining? Are you good? And we're batting a pretty low percentage on conversion rate, right? Like there's not that many athletes that have turned into compelling television personalities. And here's a great big lie. Here's a lie. And everybody watching who's a sports fan, ask yourself if you told yourself this lie. I just want sports analysis. I don't want hot takes. I don't want the yuck it up. I see that stuff all the time. And I did back in my day hosting a show on ESPN. It's not true. It's a lie. It doesn't rate. You don't watch some dry former athlete breaking down the X's and O's of plays. You want that a little. I do believe you want that a little. But you don't want that. It has to be entertaining in its delivery. In the modern day age of information, you can afford to find a podcast that's that way, and you can develop a niche audience, right? You can develop a niche audience that is super nerded out on the X's and O's or the free agency or front office elements of sports. But the truth is, you want to be entertained. And the number of athletes who've been able to check both of those boxes is extremely, extremely low. And everyone has been chasing the unicorn, the greatest to ever do it. In my mind, the greatest to ever do it, at least in a top 5, he's on the Mount Rushmore of broadcasting. And that's Charles Barkley. Everyone has been chasing that unicorn, trying to find another Charles Barkley.
Shaq is close.
And they have only with Charles Barkley. Shaq is great, but he's a different dude when he's not with Barkley. It's that chemistry that brings out the best of Shaq. And Shaq is great. I interviewed Shaq a few months ago at the Super Bowl, and he was super personable and great with me. But that doesn't mean that Shaq carries something by himself. It really is Barkley that pulls fascinating things out of other people with his unabashed authenticity. And I just think that they've tried. If you nominate Shaq 2 days, I don't know who the closest is to Shaq.
Smoltz is good with baseball. I like him. He has personality. He has X's
and I
and
like
O's.
Smoltz. But I'm trying to think of another person that has achieved that level
Pat McAfee.
of entertainment.
Yeah, but he's a punter.
Yeah.
But he's a pro athlete. He played on an NFL team. You can't take that away from him.
Yeah, but nobody casted him for that. They didn't cast him for his credibility on analyzing punts. You see what I'm saying?
On
Not
football.
that he doesn't have it. He has it.
It helped the fact
reason
that
you
he went.
watched-
I guess like a lot of the Barstool guys, like when they're former athletes, they bring on a lot of guys, and because of that,
Like
that
Bussin' with the
culture, it
Boys.
helps. Right.
But they have a
The
different
spin
shtick. They're not
chicklets.
breaking down X's and O's. They're
Right.
doing kind of like goofy culture things and not exactly, breaking down the sport.
But if you look at like one of the biggest ESPN shows of all time, it's pardon the interruption, and those are two guys who aren't former athletes. They're just guys who are passionate about sports and love sports.
And Tom Brady's
and
not
have great
it.
chemistry.
Love Tom, but
And that's what First Take was in its heyday.
Yeah.
Right, tinfoil? I mean, it was two guys debating sports, just
Right.
like PTI. And those two guys need to be reflective of the audience. You got to be able to see yourself in the debate, in the conversation, just like you do with your buddies. And in the end, I think every executive needs to understand that. Being an athlete is added value to that. It's added credibility to that. But what we all do with sports is it's entertainment because if we're being real, the mass majority is guys hanging out with guys, having fun, talking about things they like to talk about. and you need to see that reflected or a better version of it on television. And so everything you try to do, DEI representation, or even overly going into expertise, you have to be careful that you're not sacrificing that essential component of what this is about. It's why you listen to sports talk radio, because you want to hang out with those guys. It's why you watch even the halftime reports, the halftime shows, or the pregame, certainly. And I think Fox has done a great job. And that's several ex-athletes, Howie and Strahan, and then Jimmy as a coach. That's great chemistry, and you want to watch that hang out, right? That's what Big Noon and Game Day are about. The successful shows are always about that. And everything, and that's why, by the way, Inside the NBA is great, because it's about Shaq, Kenny, Ernie, and Chuck hanging out. And that's it in the end. It's a shame that they couldn't hang out last night at the ESPYs. One more clip. Speaking of great coaches, Shane Gillis on Bill Belichick.
Pitcher, hitter, and bookie. A bookie is what Bill Belichick reads to his girlfriend before bedtime. They do. They read The Very Horny Caterpillar, The Little Engine That Could But Needed a Pill First, and, of course, the classic Goodnight Boobs. That's my favorite one. Also, I'm not trashing Bill Belichick. First off, he's 73 years old and he's dating a hot 24-year-old, and people are criticizing him? What happened to this country? We used to be a great country. He won 6 Super Bowls. Yeah, he's dating a hot 24-year-old. Maybe if you guys won 6 Super Bowls, you wouldn't be sitting next to a fat, ugly dog wife. They let me do it. I don't. This is Disney. They allowed that.
That's great.
I can't imagine why Sarah Spain would be mad.
Yeah.
Shane Gillis is the top of his game, no matter what you say. You're looking at one of the best to do it right now. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on Will Cain Country. We hope you will subscribe on Spotify or Apple. That way you can get the Cain on Sports edition every Friday. That's going to do it for us. We hope we'll see you again next time.